Let's continue with Paul Stevers, who is a Canadian engineer, an inventor, and the founder of several for-profit and non-profit businesses, including Impacts Incorporated, Biooxidation, and Oxidation Technologies. What motivated Paul to act was after September 11, 2001, when he decided to explore how we could counter violent extremism by combining technologies and renewable resources. And so he's founded a variety of initiatives around that purpose of promoting technology, computer-related products, and renewables to operate in challenging environments, such as Afghanistan and parts of Africa. He is, since 2019, the co-founder of Climate Solutions Advancement Network, Climate SAN, which facilitates investment in climate solutions and creates multimedia campaigns to encourage action on climate change. Climate SAN is supporting the Africa Climate Action Initiative in its efforts to increase food security and education in Africa, especially for girls. Welcome, Paul.
Well, thank you. I wanted to pack a lot of information into my session, so I prepared a video.
Welcome, everyone. We have heard from a range of excellent speakers this evening about how climate change is impacting people across the African continent. In this presentation, I will summarize these impacts and explain how the Africa Climate Action Initiative is a good example of how we can work together to increase food security and education through actions that mitigate or adapt to climate change, and fund it with substantial money that is coming available to finance climate action. Unfortunately, climate change is compounding many existing problems and is resulting in a substantial increase in food insecurity. For example, significant change in weather patterns in Africa is causing many millions of people to become food insecure. This includes severe droughts and floods, as well as an overly wet season can create a whole new set of problems, such as locusts that multiplied into the billions and devastated crops in East Africa this year. Whether droughts or billions of locusts are causing food shortages, the results are the same. Insufficient food is creating or amplifying many conflicts, which often leads to mass migration. To illustrate the rapid growth of violence in some parts of Africa, here's a short video highlighting the growth of violence in the Sahel and West Africa region between 1997 and 2017. After seeing this video, you may agree that the problems are growing quickly and that significant action is needed. Shown in the bottom left corner is the year increasing in number. Notice how considerably more violence is shown in countries like Burkina Faso as the year approaches 2017. Fortunately, there is an opportunity to fund substantial action with funding designated for climate action. Therefore, we recommend some of this funding be strategically utilized to increase food security, education, and job creation. For example, hundreds of billions of dollars are now flowing into climate action. At the same time, rapid innovation is reducing the costs of implementing technologies to facilitate food security, such as solar-powered irrigation, as well as there's a substantial growth in free educational information and low-cost digital devices to support education. If this strategy was implemented on a substantial scale, we believe the impact would be very significant. To give you an idea of just how much money is flowing into climate action, shown here are some reports about this funding. In 2018, the World Bank Group announced $200 billion in funding over 5 years for climate action. Green bonds issuance continue to grow rapidly. For example, a new report by the Climate Bonds Initiative indicated that in 2019, green bonds issuance hit a record of $255 billion. Every year, the Climate Policy Initiative published their Global Landscape for Climate Finance report. In their recent report, they indicated that finance for climate action reached $579 billion in 2017-2018. It should be noted that this amount would likely include green bonds issuance and World Bank funding for the time period it is reported on. Therefore, all the numbers shown on the screen cannot simply be added together to estimate a larger total. To encourage investors, including the very wealthy, to invest in climate solutions, there is a growing range of financial incentives becoming available. You can view information about these incentives on a number of online platforms, including the Climate Finance Explorer by NDC Partnership, the Financial Navigator by the International Renewable Energy Agency, also known as IRENA, and finally a grants directory of projects in developing countries called the Terra Viva Grants Directory. Fortunately, rapid innovation is reducing the cost of technologies to increase food security, such as solar-powered irrigation. Shown here is a schematic illustrating this type of irrigation by Rainmaker Enterprises. In addition, there is a substantial growth of free educational information and low-cost digital services to support education. For example, last year, one NGO called 1 Billion was awarded a $5 million prize for developing an open-source, scalable software that empowers children to teach themselves basic reading, writing, and arithmetic within 15 months. Some other examples include the Rumi tablet that comes with a free educational apps developed by Rumi Initiative, which is based in Toronto, and the large offline e-library called Rachel by World Possible that includes thousands of videos from the website Khan Academy and a copy of Wikipedia for students. The Rachel e-library is available in multiple languages. One area that is often overlooked when speaking about climate action is education. Educating girls is one of the most effective but overlooked ways to help mitigate and adapt to climate change. Promoting girls' education and reproductive rights has a huge impact on lowering fertility rates. For example, research has shown that a woman with 12 years of schooling has almost 4 to 5 less children than a woman with no years of schooling. In addition, girls' education, participate in leadership in climate action, improves societal resilience. For example, for every year of schooling that girls receive in a country, on average, their respective countries' resilience to climate disasters can be expected to improve by 3.2 points on the Global Adaptation Index. As well, education helps develop life skills for a green economy, nonviolent conflict resolution, increased food production, and job creation. If this education is implemented on a very substantial scale, we expect it will result in increased stability and human security. The impact of substantial climate action to prevent and/or mitigate conflicts can be significantly increased through international cooperation. This can make much better use of available funding, innovative technologies, and free education resources. International collaboration can be done through many ways. This includes coordinated programs by the UN-related organizations such as UNDP and collaboration of civil society organizations and volunteers. As well, collaboration with impact investment funds, including the ones who are members of the Canadian Forum for Impact Investment and Development, or otherwise known as CAFID. I feel one good example of collaboration of civil society organizations and volunteers is the Africa Climate Action Initiative. Through this initiative, several organizations, including ours, are combining expertise in Canada and Africa to access funding for substantial action. Each of the participants in this initiative share information about funding opportunities, funding applications, implementations, and lessons learned. This collaboration model can be expanded to include support from more countries to increase its impact. To facilitate information sharing, participants in the ACAI who are developing climate-related projects can use online platforms like the one shown here, which is the Blended Climate Finance Marketplace by Climate Place Association. Platforms like these facilitate the initial connection between a project developer and an investor. Then the organization hosting this platform also provides a range of complementary services for a project developer to move his or her respective project forward. It takes considerable time and effort to obtain funding for larger projects. To illustrate this, here is a story that is still underway about seeking this funding. Last year, we submitted a concept note to Global Affairs Canada, or GAC, for a project in Ghana that was estimated to cost about $2 million. It was entitled Empowering Women with Smart Irrigation, Information, and Enterprise Support. Unfortunately, our submission was not selected by GAC for funding. When GAC announces their next call for similar types of concept notes, we plan to enhance our concept note and submit it again. In addition, we plan to customize and submit it to other funding organizations when possible. To expand the range of funding options, we will also explore blended finance opportunities where grant funding is combined with private sector investment and/or bank loans. As illustrated by this example, obtaining funding for larger projects requires considerable persistence and patience. In this case, more work is needed before we are successful. Therefore, we welcome the assistance of interested individuals who have proposal writing skills to help us complete the work that is needed. In conclusion, climate change is causing food insecurity for many millions of people in Africa. Fortunately, there is an opportunity to increase food security and community resilience. For example, there are hundreds of billions of dollars available for climate action, and it is possible to strategically utilize some of this money to fund projects to increase food security, such as solar-powered irrigation, and fund education, especially for girls, to help communities become more resilient to climate change. One good example of collaboration of civil society organizations and volunteers is the Africa Climate Action Initiative, which we discussed today. Through this initiative, several organizations, including ours, are combining expertise in Canada and Africa to access funding for substantial action. We recommend this collaboration model be scaled up substantially to help Africa rise to the challenge on climate change. Thank you for your time. As shown on this slide, to view this presentation again and/or related information, you can visit climatesand.org/IFS. Thank you.